All right, so we're diving deep into Mark chapter 6 today.
It's a wild one, really.
Yeah, you've been exploring Mark's gospel, and this chapter, things really start to heat up.
Yeah. A whirlwind of emotion, really. We see Jesus experiencing rejection, empowering his apostles, and then facing some pretty intense situations.
Okay, so let's just set the scene. We start with Jesus returning to his hometown, Nazareth. You'd think there'd be a parade in his honor,
Right. Hometown hero.
but the reality is a lot more complicated.
Yeah, it's actually fascinating how Mark describes the people of Nazareth. They're astonished by Jesus, but not in a good way.
Yeah, it's like they're almost starstruck, but in a negative sense. Like they just can't reconcile who they think he is with what they're seeing.
Exactly. Their familiarity with him, seeing him grow up as just a regular person, actually seems to hinder their ability to, accept him as this powerful figure.
Right, right. Like, oh, we know him. He's just the carpenter's son. What's so special about him?
Exactly. It reminds us that sometimes those closest to us can have the hardest time recognizing our growth and potential. It's like the old saying, familiarity breeds contempt. But in this case, it might be more about the difficulty of accepting change in those we think we know well.
Yeah, they even say things like, isn't this the carpenter, the son of Mary? It almost sounds like they're trying to diminish him.
Right, absolutely. I feel
Right.
like they're trying to put him back in his place, remind him that he's just one of them, nothing special.
And that kind of ties into something I found really intriguing. Mark says Jesus could do no mighty work there because of their lack of faith.
Yeah.
It's like their doubt created a barrier, almost like even divine power needs a receptive audience.
That's a point worth pondering. It raises questions about the nature of faith and its role in miracles. Does faith empower Jesus? Or does it simply remove obstacles, allowing his power to flow freely?
Yeah, and what even constitutes a mighty work?
Yeah.
And why might their lack of faith have limited Jesus' actions in Nazareth? Like, what was it about their lack of faith that was so powerful?
It's fascinating, isn't it? It really makes you think.
So even Jesus faced limitations. I mean, it makes you wonder what that says about our own limitations
Yeah,
and the power of belief, right?
definitely.
But the story doesn't end there. Feeling rejected in his hometown, Jesus moves on.
Exactly. He continues teaching in the surrounding villages, right? And then we get to a pivotal moment, the sending of the 12 apostles.
Okay, let's unpack this. Jesus basically gives them like the most minimalist packing instructions ever. Staff, sandals, one tunic, and that's it. No snacks, no spare clothes, no money.
Wow.
It's like he's sending them out on a spiritual backpacking trip with only the bare essentials.
It's incredible. Precisely. It's a radical act that emphasizes their complete reliance on God, right? They're being asked to step outside their comfort zones, to trust that their needs will be met, even without material provisions. It's a powerful lesson in faith and detachment.
Totally. Imagine being in their sandals, no phone,
Yeah.
no GPS, no emergency credit card. It really makes you think about what you truly rely on, doesn't it? What are our modern day essentials that we cling to? And how might letting go of them actually strengthen our faith?
That's a great question. It's a question worth considering. This section challenges us to examine our own attachments and consider what it truly means to follow in Jesus' footsteps.
Definitely. Okay, speaking of challenges, things take a dark turn with the story of John the Baptist. Buckle up because this one gets intense.
Yeah, this section is a stark contrast to the previous events. It highlights the dangers of speaking truth to power and the potential consequences of standing up for what's right.
So to recap, John the Baptist is imprisoned by King Herod for denouncing Herod's marriage to Herodias, his brother's wife. John boldly calls out their relationship as unlawful, which of course doesn't sit well with Herodias.
That takes some guts.
Yeah, it does. And it makes you wonder, what were the prevailing views on marriage and divorce at the time? Why was John's condemnation so significant? And what kind of pressure might he have faced for speaking out against a powerful ruler like Herod?
It's a good question. I mean, clearly this was a huge deal.
Yeah, yeah. And remember, Herod actually knew John was a righteous man. Mark even says that Herod feared John, knowing that he was a just man and holy. So why did he imprison him?
It's interesting, right? Herod's internal conflict is fascinating. He recognizes John's righteousness, but succumbs to pressure from Herodias, and likely his own fears and desires. It's a complex interplay of power, lust, and revenge.
It's almost like he's trapped between his conscience and the consequences of defying these powerful figures. And then, of course, we have that infamous birthday banquet where things escalate dramatically.
Oh, yeah.
So the scene is set for disaster. Herodias' daughter dances for Herod, pleasing him so much that he makes a reckless promise to grant her any wish.
Yeah, that's where we get the Truly chilling detail, John the Baptist's head. Delivered on a platter.
It's a brutal image. It really underscores the price of speaking truth to power. John paid the ultimate price for his convictions.
Yeah, it's a story that resonates throughout history, right? Reminding us of the courage it takes to stand up for what's right, even in the face of opposition. And it raises important questions for us today. What are we willing to risk for our beliefs?
Yeah.
How do we navigate those situations where speaking out might come at a cost?
Yeah, that's heavy stuff.
It is.
And that wraps up the first part of our deep dive into Mark chapter 6. It's already been a whirlwind of emotions, from the rejection Jesus faced in his hometown to the tragic fate of John the Baptist.
Yeah, we've seen glimpses of both human frailty and divine power, prompting us to reflect on the nature of faith, the cost of conviction, and the complexities of power dynamics.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll explore the miraculous feeding of the 5,000 and Jesus walking on water.
Can't wait.
It's about to get truly awe-inspiring. Welcome back. So we just explored kind of the darker side of Mark chapter 6, but now we're shifting gears to something a bit more hopeful, the miracle of Jesus feeding the 5,000.
Right, a story that truly embodies abundance and compassion. After, the heaviness of John the Baptist's death, we see Jesus' power to provide and comfort in a tangible way.
Okay. So, all right, set the scene for us. We've got 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish, and thousands of hungry people gathered in a remote area. Logically speaking, it seems impossible to feed everyone.
It does. And that's precisely what makes this event so remarkable. It challenges our limited thinking, right? It reminds us that with God, all things are possible. But it's not just about the miraculous multiplication of food.
Okay. So there's more to it than just solving a logistical problem. What else is going on here?
Well, Mark tells us that Jesus had compassion on the crowds. He saw their need, their vulnerability, and he chose to respond with love and generosity. It speaks to his deep empathy and desire to care for those who are lost and hungry, both physically and spiritually.
I noticed that the disciples initially suggest sending the people away to buy food for themselves.
Right.
The thinking practically.
Right.
But Jesus has something else in mind.
Exactly. It's almost as if the disciples are stuck in a scarcity mindset, focused on limitations. But Jesus operates from a place of abundance, trusting in God's provision, even when it seems illogical.
Yeah, so he takes the 5 loaves and 2 fish, blesses them, and boom, it's enough to feed everyone with baskets of leftovers to spare. That detail always gets me. It's not just enough, it's more than enough. It speaks to the boundless nature of God's grace, doesn't
It
it?
does. It reminds us that God's love and provision are not limited or finite. There's always enough to go around, and even more than we could ever imagine. But the chapter keeps building on this theme of divine power. We then move on to another incredible miracle, Jesus walking on water.
Okay, this one always blows my mind. It seems to defy the laws of nature. We're talking about walking on liquid. What's the deeper meaning here?
Well, for starters, water is often associated with chaos and fear in biblical imagery. And in this story, the disciples are literally caught in a storm, struggling against the wind and waves. It's a scene of intense fear and uncertainty.
Right. They think they're seeing a ghost when Jesus approaches them, calmly walking on the water. I mean, who wouldn't be freaked out?
Their fear is understandable, but then Jesus speaks those comforting words. Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. And immediately the storm calms. It's like his presence alone brings peace and order amidst the chaos.
So it's not just a physical feat, it's a display of power over nature itself. Jesus is essentially demonstrating his authority over the forces that threaten and frighten us. He's the one who can calm the storms in our lives, both literally and figuratively.
Precisely. It's a powerful image of hope and reassurance for anyone who's ever felt overwhelmed by life's challenges. But the symbolism goes even deeper.
Oh, tell me more. What other layers of meaning can we unpack here?
Well, if we consider the Old Testament, water is also associated with the creation story, right? Where God brings order out of chaos. In a sense, Jesus walking on water echoes that primal act of creation. He's demonstrating his divine power to subdue chaos and bring about a new reality.
That's fascinating. So both the feeding of the 5,000 and the walking on water are not just isolated events. They're connected to this larger biblical narrative of God's power and provision. They point towards Jesus' authority over nature, his compassion for humanity, and his ability to bring order out of chaos.
Exactly. These miracles offer us a glimpse into the very nature of Jesus' being and mission. But Mark isn't finished yet. There's still more to explore in this remarkable chapter.
Okay, then let's keep going. What comes next?
Well, the chapter concludes with Jesus returning to Gennesaret, where something extraordinary happens.
And what's that?
Word has spread about Jesus' healing power, and people are desperate to reach him. They believe that even touching the fringe of his garment will bring them healing.
So we're talking about a scene of intense faith and longing, with people clamoring to get close to Jesus, hoping for a miracle.
Exactly. It speaks to the depths of their belief and the power of desperation. They're willing to do anything, even just graze his clothing, if it means experiencing healing.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? It makes me wonder what it must have been like to be in that crowd, to witness that level of faith and desperation. Would I have been one of those reaching out, hoping for a touch?
It's a question that invites us to examine our own beliefs, right? What would we do if we were in their shoes? How far would we go to experience that kind of healing or connection?
So even in this seemingly simple act of touching Jesus' garment, there are layers of meaning and questions about faith, desperation, and the power of belief. This chapter is packed with so much symbolism and insight.
It is, and it all comes together to paint this rich portrait of Jesus' character and mission. We see his compassion, his authority over nature, his willingness to meet human needs, and the profound impact he has on those who encounter him.
This deep dive into Mark chapter 6 has been truly eye-opening. We've covered so much ground. From the darkness of John the Baptist's execution, to the awe-inspiring miracles of feeding the 5,000 and walking on water.
We've explored the depths of human emotion, the complexities of faith, and the power of belief. It's been a journey of discovery, and there's still more to uncover.
All right, then let's continue this journey in the final part of our deep dive. We'll delve into the concluding scenes of Mark chapter 6 and unpack the overarching themes and lessons that resonate with us today. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Mark chapter 6. It's been a wild ride.
It has.
Yeah, we've journeyed through a whirlwind of emotions and events, from the highs of those miraculous healings to the lows of rejection and even martyrdom.
It's been a fascinating exploration of faith, courage,
Mhm.
and the power of belief. And as we delve into these concluding scenes of this chapter, we'll see how Mark brings these themes together in a really profound way.
Okay, so we left off with people desperately trying to even touch the fringe of Jesus' garment, believing it would bring them healing. It speaks volumes about the level of faith and desperation that they felt.
It does, and it raises some intriguing questions about the nature of healing itself.
Oh, yeah, like what?
Like, is it solely a physical phenomenon, or is there a spiritual dimension as well? How does faith play a role in the healing process?
Those are great questions. And it makes me wonder, like, what even constitutes healing in this context? Is it just about curing physical ailments, or could it also encompass emotional, spiritual, or even social restoration?
That's an insightful observation. The concept of healing in the Bible is often multifaceted. It's about addressing the whole person, body, mind, and spirit. And in this scene, I think we see a glimpse of that holistic approach.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into Mark chapter 6, what are some of the key takeaways that stand out to you? What can we learn from this chapter that might be relevant to our lives today?
Well, one of the most striking takeaways for me is the power of faith. Throughout the chapter, we see how faith, or the lack of it, shapes people's interactions with Jesus, from the rejection he faces in Nazareth to the desperate pleas for healing in Gennesaret. Belief seems to be a crucial element in experiencing his power.
It's almost like faith acts as a conduit, allowing that divine power to flow into human lives. And that raises another question, like what does genuine faith look like? Is it simply believing in something, or is it something more active and transformative?
That's a question worth pondering. True faith, as depicted in Mark's gospel, seems to involve a deep trust in Jesus, a willingness to follow his teachings, and a commitment to living out his message of love and compassion.
It's not just about intellectual assent. It's about, like, aligning your life with his values and actively participating in his mission. And speaking of missions, another key takeaway is the challenge of discipleship. We see this most clearly in the section where Jesus sends out the 12 apostles with those minimal provisions.
Right, it's a radical call to trust in God's provision, to step outside their comfort zones, and to embrace a life of simplicity and service. It challenges our modern notions of security and success, and it invites us to reconsider what truly matters.
It's a powerful reminder that true discipleship often involves sacrifice, risk, and a willingness to let go of material possessions in order to follow Jesus wholeheartedly. And then there's the sobering story of John the Baptist. which highlights the cost of speaking truth to power.
Yes. John's courage in confronting Herod's sin, even knowing the potential consequences, it's a testament to his unwavering commitment to righteousness. His story serves as a stark reminder that standing up for what's right can sometimes come at a great personal cost.
It's a timeless message that resonates even today, especially in a world where speaking truth to power can be met with uh, backlash, censorship, or even persecution. But amidst these challenges, we also see glimpses of hope and resilience.
Absolutely. The miraculous feeding of the 5,000 and the walking on water episodes, they offer us a glimpse of Jesus' divine power and compassion. They remind us that even in the midst of storms and scarcity, God is present
Hmm.
and able to provide for our needs in extraordinary ways.
It's a powerful message of hope and encouragement for anyone facing those difficult circumstances. So as we conclude this deep dive into Mark chapter 6, what's one final thought you'd like to leave our listener with?
I'd say this. Mark chapter 6 invites us to reflect on our own faith journeys. It challenges us to consider the depth of our beliefs, the cost of our convictions, and the ways in which we are called to live out our faith in a world that often seems hostile to it.
That's a powerful call to action, to engage deeply with our beliefs, to stand up for what's right, and to trust in God's provision, even when the path ahead seems uncertain.
Exactly. And to remember that even amidst the storms of life, we have a Savior who walks on water, calms the waves, and multiplies our meager resources to feed a multitude.
Beautifully said. And with that inspiring thought, we conclude our deep dive into Mark chapter 6. We hope you gained new insights, wrestled with challenging questions, and been encouraged by the timeless truths found in this remarkable chapter.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. May the stories and teachings of Mark chapter 6 continue to resonate with you long after you've finished listening.